Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about Lara Trump and the fact that she is no longer, or not considering, running for United States Senate in the state of North Carolina. Now, the reason why this is noteworthy is because Lara Trump has been long seen as the Republican frontrunner in this race, the 2022 North Carolina Senate race. Someone who is the daughter of President Trump could make a name for herself, which could expand what was already given to her by her last name. She announces that she will not be running for Senate, mainly because of her family, because of her two children. She has a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old that she believes that she needs to be more attentive to rather than run for United States Senate. But in her quote, she says that she is not running for now, saying that she's not going to be able to enter the Senate race right now. Not saying no forever, just so we know. This essentially is telling us that Lara Trump has some type of political future lined up in her mind. It seems as if, because of the young nature of her children, that she is not going to be running for Senate as it stands. But once they get older, what's stopping her? It doesn't seem like anything else. The comment made, the statement sent out, was mainly and directly related to her family. That's all that she gave us, and that sort of tells us everything we need to know about her political future. But we're not talking about her political future. We're talking about the implication of this non-candidate, or just Lara Trump not running on the 2022 North Carolina Senate race. And this is a Senate race that now has an open seat. With Richard Burr's retirement announcement, many Republicans seem to be flocking towards this race as an opportunity to get in the United States Senate. We see here that a representative from North Carolina's 13th District, Ted Budd, he's a Freedom Caucus member. Pat McCrory, the former governor of the state and the former mayor of Charlotte, who served as mayor of Charlotte for over a decade. And then you also have Mark Walker, the former United States representative from North Carolina's 6th Congressional District. Now, amongst these three candidates, before an endorsement was made, which I will mention in just a moment, Ted Budd, Pat McCrory, and Mark Walker seemed to be far away from each other. Ted Budd was in single digits, Mark Walker was at around 11%, and Pat McCrory was anywhere from 40 to 48%. Now, in the hypothetical polling data, Lara Trump had the lead, even against Pat McCrory, even against Mark Walker, Mark Robinson, Dan Forest, the lieutenant governor of the state who just lost to the incumbent governor, Roy Cooper, who ran. Dan Forest was polling not too well, ended up losing by less than the polling numbers actually suggested. But essentially, the main takeaway here is that Lara Trump pitted up against any candidate, ends up winning or tying with Pat McCrory when this poll removes the rest of the candidates. So all in all, Lara Trump, in many ways, the front runner. In many ways, the person that was supposed to be the unbeatable candidate. And of course, with her announcement that she's not running, the numbers start to point towards a Pat McCrory victory. Until this came along. Because Lara Trump has announced that she's not going to run, President Trump endorses Ted Budd, the same person you just saw peaking at 9% in the preliminary election data, polling at 5% in the most recent one. And it is quite interesting. Because this candidate list is so widespread and Lara Trump is not announcing, Ted Budd seems to be the next person that President Trump wants to nominate, or the next person that President Trump wants to support, which means that not only is Ted Budd getting the endorsement of Donald Trump, but with almost every other Trump surrogate and Trump name that's going to follow through, including Lara Trump's endorsement. But Ted Budd hasn't really been polling too well. Pat McCrory has the recognizable name, considering that he's the former governor of the state, but he has yet to receive any major endorsements. This was Pat McCrory's race to lose. Once I originally saw that Lara Trump announcement, it seemed as if it was going to immediately shift towards Pat McCrory. You recognize his name. He served as a governor. Republicans, Democrats, Independents elected him before, so why not now? Well, if Ted Budd is able to capture a significant portion of that Trump vote with that endorsement, you can widely expect this primary to turn completely upside down and completely around. Ted Budd went from being at the lowest point out of all of the candidates, even added into the mix compared to Mark Walker and Pat McCrory and Lara Trump in that poll from Meredith College. He only got 6%. You put him in another poll where you include the same candidates, 2%. Right? And then the ones where it's just the three candidates, 9 and 5, never did well, but this endorsement might carry him across the finish line. But Lara Trump, I would say, in many ways, was probably a more electable candidate, which I think is quite interesting. Pat McCrory, as the former governor of the state, is a losing candidate. In the 2016 Senate election in North Carolina, Richard Burr won re-election on the same ballot Donald Trump won the state of North Carolina, but also on the same ballot that North Carolina elected a Democrat to the governor's office against Governor Pat McCrory. North Carolina ousted the incumbent Republican and placed in a Democrat, despite President Trump winning the state by over 3 points, despite Richard Burr winning the state by over 5 points. The Republicans at the top of the tickets didn't include Pat McCrory in that transition to victory. And that's exactly what might have happened in 2022 if he becomes that nominee, or if he became that nominee, because my chances for him have since dwindled following Ted Budd's endorsement from President Trump. But with Lara Trump out of the race, you no longer have that one candidate who can resonate with the voters the same way President Trump did back in 2016 or even in 2020. Looking at the election results, Donald Trump lost Georgia and Virginia, but not North Carolina, for a reason. He had some type of reasoning, and he was able to resonate with many of these voters enough that he was able to win the state for a second time. Now, it did shift towards the left. As I mentioned before, President Trump won the state by 3 points, a little bit more than that, actually 3.3%. But Donald Trump won the state this time by 1.3%. The margin was cut in more than half. And the large reason for that, I would say, is because the entire country cut in half for President Trump in terms of his previous margins, or maybe even flipped towards Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But for Donald Trump to win here by 1.3% is still a good sign for President Trump. It's still a good sign for the American public. But for Lara Trump to be removing herself from this race is honestly a bad move. We've seen, The Hill actually saying, she was a wild card. She is someone who could enter into this race and completely shake up the narrative, completely change the way we look at North Carolina. And I've been rating this state as tilt and lean Democrat for quite some time now. My rating has changed, fluctuated back and forth, because North Carolina is quite a tricky state to predict. I still think the Republicans are going to win there, but I do think that Lara Trump could have been a more powerful one. And as The Hill notes, this was her opportunity, and the best one. Looking at her comments, it's clear that she wants to run for office in the future. It's clear that she was heavily considering this North Carolina Senate race. If you look at what she says, she says, now there may have been a rumor saying I'm considering running for a Senate seat here in North Carolina, and saying that she was considering it. Saying she did a lot of soul searching, thinking, talking with her father-in-law, her parents, her husband. Lara Trump wanted to be in a position where she could run for this Senate seat. But the only thing holding her back was the fact that her children were there, and she said if she was to run for Senate, she would need to give 100%. But she simply couldn't do it when her children are at such a pivotal age where they need a mother, or she thinks that they need a mother to be in a position where she is there 100% of the time. That was her reasoning. I understand the reasoning of family issues, but the reality of the situation is, as much as she has the family issues, not excuse, but card to play, this is why I'm not running, and no one can really say that's a bad reason, because it simply is not, but she still lost her best opportunity. And as The Hill notes, it is. I completely agree with this. This is a position in which she might try to run in office in the future, but right now she could be riding the Trump wave. She could be riding the influence and popularity of President Trump within the Republican Party, and she just isn't tapping into it. Now, not never, might mean never. Because even if she wants to run in the future, how influential will President Trump be in 2028? How influential would President Trump's name be in 2032? Or even 2024? And the next time this Senate race is up is 2028. If she was to run for a Senate race, we just had one in 2020, it would be 2026. I mean, the influence of the former president dissipates over time. And President Trump is only going to get older. So the less and less of him campaigning, the less and less statements he puts out, the less and less endorsements, and the less influence within the Republican Party ultimately will screw over Lara Trump's chances at a Senate bid, or at a House bid, or potentially a governor bid, or maybe even a presidential bid. But this was her best opportunity, and she's wasting it right now. Not wasting it, but throwing it away. Wasting, I'm not going to say that families shouldn't take precedence over political concerns, but as they say, if she ever really wanted it, if she wanted to be in the United States Senate, it's now or never. And there are plenty of other senators and representatives who have children and were growing up with them on the campaign trail, because we know representatives are never off that campaign trail because they're reelected every 2 years. So I get it. I get her concerns completely, wholeheartedly. I'm not a mother, so obviously I wouldn't be in that position, but I do think that it is just unfortunate timing for her. If she truly wanted to be in the Senate, it was now or never, and it looks like never is going to be her option at this point, unless President Trump can completely change his political image and can continue this legacy well beyond 2024. So with Ted Budd's endorsement, how is Ted Budd going to do? What could Lara Trump have done differently? Well, flashback to 2010, Richard Burr was first elected in 2004. He had a moderately competitive race, especially for North Carolina. But fast forward to 2010, Richard Burr won by 10 points. 2016, Donald Trump is on the ballot as well. Richard Burr wins by 5 points. So 2022 rolls around, and it looks as if maybe Richard Burr might end up losing in this race because of Donald Trump's decreased popularity in the state. I mean, I kid you not, Donald Trump isn't necessarily popular in North Carolina like he once was. And for him to have won by 5 points, Richard Burr being him, and then Donald Trump to have won by 3 points, if Donald Trump was reducing that margin by more than half to 1.3%, in addition to a Senate race where we don't know the nature of the year, Richard Burr was right to retire. He had been in the Senate for 3 terms. He has time. He wanted to be there as long as he was, and he doesn't need to run for re-election. So Lara Trump probably could have expanded off President Trump's margin if 2022 was that red wave year. But if it was a blue wave year, she still would be a formidable opponent. But for the rest of these candidates, these aren't people that immediately come to mind when you think of President Trump. When you think about the person who was able to completely rewrite the electoral map for the first time in decades, you don't think about Mark Walker. You don't think about Pat McCrory. You don't think about Ted Budd. Even though Donald Trump has endorsed Ted Budd, you still would recognize Lara Trump's name a lot easier than Ted Budd, even if he becomes or is your representative or United States Senator. I mean, at the end of the day, I reiterate this point because it's true. Lara Trump very well could have won this race. The 2020 election is not the only form of proof that I have for this claim. I mean, she was going to easily win that primary. Pat McCrory might have been a notable opposition, but once Donald Trump came on that campaign trail campaigning for Lara Trump, it would have been over. It would have been a victory for her, and she would have completely clinched that nomination right from the beginning. Because if you look at the approval rating for Republicans in North Carolina, you'll see exactly why. Maybe not necessarily, on the general election level that she would have been the favorite, but in the primary, you can see that President Trump left office with an 89% approval rating amongst Republicans in North Carolina. So I really see, I can completely understand why Lara Trump would be that easy to win nominee. And, for the general election, I wouldn't put it past her to win either. I don't think she would be the favorite. I think if Lara Trump was the nominee, that it would still be very difficult. Actually, I will say that I think she would have been the narrow favorite, as I have been rating the race for quite some time now. But it's not as if she would be at a 99% chance of victory, 90% chance of victory, probably somewhere around 60 to 70, which means the Democrats have a very good opportunity at winning that Senate race in that position. I think Pat McCrory is an even weaker candidate. I haven't known or learned much about Ted Budd. Mark Walker probably is also another one of those weaker candidates. And President Trump also seems to have settled on Ted Budd as well. If you look at his voting record, he's actually backed President Trump on many major votes, less than the average Republican. So it's at a position where President Trump is choosing the next pro-Trump candidate, and even then, they underperform other Republicans in terms of how much they vote and agree with President Trump. But with all the speculation surrounding Lara Trump, she has officially reached a decision. But it's not one that benefits her name or benefits President Trump. I'm sure President Trump would have loved if she had ran for United States Senate. I'm sure he would have been completely happy with that. And I'm sure he was encouraging her. But her main thing was family. Her main takeaway was that she just doesn't have it in her right now to be raising her kids as well as running for United States Senate. And as I said before, it is unfortunate timing for her because, as the Hill notes, and I completely and wholeheartedly agree, this was her best opportunity to reach the United States Senate. And the fact is, she won't be there. But she very well could run for office in the future. But looking at the election results of President Trump in 2020, looking at the 2016 Senate results and the election results of the regular election and the governor election, one person jumps out as the most electable and the most determined the most easily campaignable for candidate, and that easily was Lara Trump. We had talked about this on numerous occasions in my video when we talked about the 2022 Senate race. I said I was waiting on an announcement. You know, she could have waited a couple extra months and made her decision then. But it's very clear what she wants to do now. But altogether, I will say that it does and will, make me reevaluate the race in the state of North Carolina, because I was expecting her to possibly make a decision to actually run in this Senate race. I did think that signs started to point. Before I was saying probably not, it's just because she's a Trump from North Carolina, but it seemed to be clearer and clearer every day that she was going to actually end up running for United States Senate. That simply was not the case. And her issue, her reasoning, completely valid, but I will say that it is an opportunity lost for Lara Trump. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.